what's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Black Student Success Podcast, where we bring on Black professionals to talk about their story and how they got into their career and all the little bits and pieces in between. So my name is Selvin Quire. I am the co-founder of Inquire Hire, which is what the company that's bringing you this podcast. So I appreciate you joining us today. As a friendly reminder, we want to make sure that you like, comment, share, and subscribe to the podcast. We also want you to check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's at Inquire Hire. That's INQUIREHIGHER. And then we also have our website, inquirehire.com. We've got a wealth of information there regarding college preparation, student success, as well as personal finance. And it's in the fall. We are in the midst of college applications and just that whole season. So if you need any help with that, whether it's with that, financial aid, or even if you're not even at that point, you're just looking to try to figure out what you want to do, what school you want to go to, we are here to help you with all of that. So feel free to check us out on our website. You can contact us at contact@inquirehire.com, and we would love to help you. So for today's episode, we have Isioma Nwabuzor, and she is in the field of law. So have you ever thought about being a lawyer? You ever thought about getting into the field? Don't really know which direction you want to take with that? We're going to talk to her about her story, how she got into it, the little nuances when it comes to working in law, and, you know, again, everything in between with that. So she is the Vice President and Associate General Counsel for Baird in Milwaukee. She is recognized as one of the 40 under 40 by the Milwaukee Business Journal. She is a distinguished speaker as well as an advocate. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. And she's also a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So thank you, Isioma, for joining us today. How you doing?
I am well, and no, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I really do appreciate your time, and then just, you know, the story, because you have a very layered and powerful story that I want to get into. So first, we always, you know, start off the same way. We give you as the guest just the floor to introduce yourself and answer the question, who is Isioma Nwabuzor?
Yes, well, Isioma is a child of God before anything else. I am a daughter. I am a sister. I am a friend. I'm a sorority sister. I'm a godmom. I'm a best friend. I'm all those things. I'm a lawyer. And I think what people have come to discover as of late is that I'm a dreamer. And so I'm a Black woman. And so all of these things factor and play a role in who I am and how I walk my walk in life.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And so to give a preface for our next question, Isioma has a bachelor's in political science, and she's got her doctorate in law, both from Marquette, where we actually met. So when it comes to your, you know, trying to figure out how you got into law, like what kind of careers did you ever consider before getting into law? And then what was that deciding moment that, you know, this is the career for me?
Right. So from a professional perspective, I come from a foreign family. And for those of you out here who have foreign families, you know, there's really a few careers you can pick from that they think are legitimate. And so for a Nigerian family, it's usually a lawyer, doctor, engineer. Luckily for me, I did have a passion for law. On my maternal side, I come from a long line of lawyers. And although I had a few hobbies and interests here and there, I love to draw. I love fashion. At one point, I did think I was going to be a fashion designer, but I always wanted a platform where I knew I could help people. That was always the core of who I am. And so having that sort of familial motivation and just a field that spoke to my skill set. So I'm a good orator. I've always been good in liberal arts, speaking, reading, history, things of that nature. Politics was always of interest for me. And then again, I needed something that provided me with a platform to help people that came with a ton of credibility. And that's how I decided to pursue a career in the law.
Okay. And did you figure out those skills early on, or did it take some other experiences to really have that realization that you could use those skills to put towards law?
It was a mixture of both. And so as I stated, I was naturally inclined towards speaking and writing and I was just good at it. I was always a great reader. Early on, I had advanced reading. I was always great at public speaking. That was just kind of my thing. I was, no matter how large the crowd was. And so, in part, and although those things translate to a ton of careers, right? Just because you're a good speaker, a good reader, a good writer doesn't mean, okay, you're going to be a lawyer. But it was a career that naturally spoke to my skill set. And then as I progressed on in life, as I got through middle school, high school, college, and I started seeing what are the things I want to change in the world? You know, where do I want my impact to be? The legal career became more and more pronounced. And then again, my family, that's what they've always done on my maternal side. And so it just made sense. But again, with a law degree, you could be you could be a lawyer, you could be a law professor, you can be a politician, you could be a police officer, you could be a business person. There's so many ways you can take that where you can help people. And so it was a mixture of both. Early on, I knew what my skill set was, but then I discovered how that played into the impact I wanted to make in the world.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, when it comes to discovering those skills, as well as you looking at it from a bigger perspective, as opposed to just not what you want to do, but also how you want to impact people. And you chose law as that medium to basically achieve that, it sounds like.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely.
Nice. So when it comes to law, now that can just break out into a bunch of different areas. You can go into entertainment with law. You can go into sports. You can go into personal injury with law. So from your experience, what are the different types of attorneys that are out there? What fields can you get into, just to give the people just a little bit more insight of how that breaks down a little bit?
That is such a good question, because I think growing up as children, we see what we see on television, right? And when you think of lawyers, you think of your Judge Judy's, you think of objection, you know, the sexy courtroom stuff. And it's very true. There are different kinds of lawyers and different kinds of paths you can take. So from a high level, you have your transactional attorneys, which is what I am, and then you have your litigators. Your transactional attorneys are people who typically work in corporations. Sometimes they can work in a law firm, but they represent big businesses and entities, and they handle exactly what it sounds like, their transactions, so their business deals and their sales and their purchases and things like that. Then you have your litigators, and those are the people who you see on television saying objection. Those are your judges, those are your Judge Judy's, those are the people who spend time in the courtroom fighting one side of the case or other. They can be public defenders or they can be prosecutors. And so I am a transactional attorney. And then when you get into those different sides, again, there's different specialties and practice areas. One thing I like to compare it to is doctors. You have a doctor for your kids, you have a doctor for adults, you have a doctor for your heart, you have a doctor for your foot, you have a doctor for your eye. Lawyers are very similar, and people often don't realize that. So you have your real estate attorneys, you have your sports attorneys, you have your corporate transactional attorneys, you have your securities attorneys who specialize in the stock market, trades, bonds, mergers and acquisitions. You have your public interest attorneys. You have your family attorneys. I mean, any sort of area you can think of the world and of life, you can probably find an attorney for that.
Okay. And so I think one of the cool things that you pointed out was the difference is kind of the bigger overall, I would say, the bigger groups when it comes to the different lawyers, when it comes to transactional as well as litigators. So, which kind of breaks down, it sounds like, to representing larger entities and companies versus representing people is what it kind of sounds like. Now, so I could be a sports nerd. I could want to know every single ins and outs when it comes to sports, and using that, I could go into sports law with that and be able to, whether it's defending a franchise or an association or things like that. That's something that I can get into. Okay. So now, when it comes to those different kinds of attorneys in terms of the compensation, I think another thing that we all grow up hearing is that lawyers get paid. Lawyers, whatever you do, just get into law, you will have a set lifestyle for whatever it is. But when you actually go to the breakdowns, especially when you're looking at the transactional versus the litigators, there may be some differences when it comes to the pay level. So, I mean, how would you rank the compensation? Is it, do the litigators get paid more? Do the transactional lawyers get paid more? What does that actually look like, so people have a better idea?
So it all depends on where you work and what community and population you serve. So oftentimes when you're looking at the lower end of the pay spectrum, you're looking at your public interest attorneys, people who represent nonprofit organizations who, and I don't even want to say nonprofit because if you're a huge nonprofit, you have a larger budget, but people who often represent small organizations or, your average Joe, me, you, people who are public defenders, but do public interest work, things that are in the service of others. Now, if you're in a law firm, a big law firm, you could still be a litigator in a big law firm. And oftentimes, if it's a big law firm, they're really on the higher end. So that's probably the opposite side. If you're a big law firm, whether you're representing an individual or you're representing an organization, big law is where you find your big money. And even more so is that you come out of law school making that. So another factor is how long you've been serving, not only where you work, who you serve, but how long you've been serving as an attorney. And the thing about big law is you can make big money coming straight out of law school. And then somewhere in the middle there, you have your average transactional attorneys like me where, we're not working for a big organization, a big firm with all of the, huge money, but we're also representing corporations. And so that's sort of in the middle spectrum there.
Okay. And thank you for that breakdown because especially for me, I actually didn't know kind of where people kind of fall in the spectrum, but I was aware because of all the different specialties you can get into, they might not all be at that same mark. So,
well, and that's a good call out too, because then you're talking about specialties. So when you're talking about sports and entertainment attorneys and things like that, obviously they're going to get a lot of money. If you're talking about, medical malpractice, they represent doctors and things like that. They get a lot more money. When you start looking at more common sort of practice areas and things, they might be lower down the scale. That's not to say you don't make money. Everyone here makes money. The range just varies.
Okay. And I think bottom line, when it comes to even just trying to figure out where you want to go within law is to kind of like what you did in the beginning where you figured out what your purpose was. You really want to help people. You want to have a voice for people. And, you found your way with that purpose in mind. Now, that was kind of your compass when it came to finding out what direction you want to get into. So I would definitely remind our listeners to have that purpose and really stick with that and not chase the money because the money's going to come. The money's going to come.
That is such wise advice. The money comes. Do what you're good at and do what you're passionate about. When you're passionate about it and you're good at it, people recognize that and the money comes.
There you go. So now when it comes to what you've done outside of your normal work, but still within law, I saw that you were a part of a number of organizations, specifically on the boards of those associations. So yes. I want to get your perspective on, what that experience is like. What does it mean to be on the board of an organization? Is it volunteer work? Is it paid? Or, what benefits do you get out of that? What is that whole experience like?
No. So, yeah, absolutely. The board, again, going back to what my purpose is and want to have an impact in not only my personal life and my family's life, but in my community, I understand that requires service. You mentioned earlier, I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. Service is ingrained in who I am. I believe it's the rent we pay for living. And so any opportunity that I have to sort of funnel the resources that are backed by big businesses and things to enhance our community, that's what I look to do. And so oftentimes what you'll find is that as you become more established in your professional career, organizations will start to seek you out to be of service to them. And so a board is often sort of the managing body of many organizations. They sort of make a lot of big decisions, and then the organization's leadership or executive team goes and implements that and make sure that it operates as it should. And so I serve on a few community boards, some for for-profit organizations, some for nonprofit organizations. And board service can be paid or unpaid. And that's something that I actually recently discovered. Paid board opportunities are few and far between, but they do exist. There are people on there who people out there who serve on boards and get paid for it. Now, I'm not in that position just yet. Maybe one day.
Not yet.
But you do want to get that experience. So in the event that you do seek out a paid board opportunity, you do know what you're doing. As a lawyer, oftentimes when I serve on boards, they look for me for that legal guidance. So whether it's reviewing contracts or, the overall governance of an organization, they seek my advice. But there are other things you can do as well. Most boards have a finance team. Most boards, like I said, have a governance team, an executive committee, a ton of things. And it's just another avenue to pour into your community. I often back organizations that represent who I am. So whether they're legal organizations that address immigrant rights, organizations that are for women, or organizations that represent racial minorities and other marginalized groups. Those are the things that I try to lend my effort to. And that's how I'm able to merge my passion with my professional.
Okay, and you get that personal fulfillment from being a part of those organizations.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to the I guess professional development that you kind of get out of that as well, what does that look like? Because that also propels your own career with the experiences that you're utilizing with working with those different organizations.
Yes, that's such a good call out. So first things first, boards offer great networking opportunities. Oftentimes you're serving alongside people who are heavy hitters and movers and shakers in the community just as much as you are. And so it offers a great network. On top of that, as you mentioned, the professional exposure and experience, you understand how organizations work. And when you understand how organizations work, particularly from a nonprofit sector, you can apply that to all areas of life. If you're looking to ascend in your own organization or at your own company, understanding the books and how things operate and the governance structure and the leadership structure of a smaller organization that you're lending your services to, you can help you understand and implement that and understand your own organization. I understand finances, I understand how to, read books, and I understand what it means to deliver minutes, and I understand what it means to have a quorum, and I understand all of these things that come with professional responsibilities, particularly in the corporate setting.
Okay, nice. And last point, when it comes to that, now, were these positions that you sought out, or did those organizations seek you for them?
Yes. So most of the organizations I serve on, they sought me out, but they were things that sort of piqued my interest before they sought me out. And so for instance, I serve on the board for the Association of Corporate Counsel. That's an organization that serves in-house corporate attorneys. When I started in this field, that's where I was. And so I knew of it. I was interested. I wanted to lend my services to that organization. And when they were in a position where they had an opening for me, they reached out and said, hey, we think you'd be perfect. Would you like to sign on for this initial term? And so oftentimes the organizations seek you out. And that is one word of wisdom and advice I'll give, is that understand what you're passionate about before you commit to boards. You should treat a board commitment like a job. Do due diligence. Is this something you're just doing because you want to add another check to your resume, add another, box to your resume? Or is the purpose and the intent of the organization truly something you're passionate about? Because if you're just signing on to boards just because you want board experience and you want the network and you think you're going to get some benefit out of it, you're going to be signing on to things that you truly do not care about. And when something comes around that you are passionate about, you won't have the capacity for it. And so a lot of people, again, when you ascend in your career and when you establish yourself as a professional, will come out to you. And that's how I got all of my board opportunities.
Okay. So, like you said, the accolades and the money will come. Stick with that purpose, stick with that passion, and everything will fall in place. So, and that actually goes to very well with our next question when it comes to your own brand. It sounds like you've really built up your own personal brand. You're using your career to, again, really project that voice and that purpose that you are, that you've built over time. And specifically with, being a speaker, being an advocate for immigration reform, as well as, really helping, particularly the undocumented population of the U.S. So, what was the mindset or the intention that you had when it came to building your brand, when you created IamIsioma.com, and when you also created, the Dreamer Next Door? What was the mindset that, that came with all of that?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to be more than a lawyer. I looked to the women who I wanted to be like, and they always were more than just one thing. Oprah has always been more than just a journalist. That's where she started, but she's more than a journalist. She's a philanthropist. She's a speaker. She's a leader in the community. When I look at Beyonce is more than just a singer. She's an entertainer. She's a philanthropist. You look at Michelle Obama, she's more than just a lawyer. Candy Burris, who I love, I don't know how many people are familiar with her, but she started off often escape, but she's so much more. She's a songwriter. She's a boutique owner. She does all of these things. And so I understood that to truly be successful and to fulfill my God-given purpose, I had to be more than just a lawyer. And oftentimes you can use what you do professionally to sort of propel what you want to do personally. And so when I got to college, that's when I learned that I was a dreamer. And for those of you that are unfamiliar, those are people who were brought to the United States as children illegally. And because of that, they have no pathway to citizenship in the United States. One of the practical implications of being a dreamer is that you do not qualify for the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA as it's commonly known as. And so oftentimes when dreamers, people like me, get to college, which is what I experienced, we're faced with how are we going to pay for this? And sometimes you see people just abort college altogether because they just can't fathom how they'll come up with the money. People have an extended college experience. And so dreamers, typically you're in college 4 to 5 years, maybe 6 on the high end. But dreamers, because they're paying credit for credit, have an extended experience. And you'll find dreamers in college for 6, 7, 8+ years. Or, they get accepted to your Harvards. They get accepted to your Stanfords, Cornells, and Yales. But because they cannot afford it, because those come with a heavy financial burden, they, opt for a different university, which is not necessarily what they would have originally gone with, but they need to figure out a way that they can pay for it. And so for me, I wanted to design something that will alleviate the financial burden of higher education on undocumented students. And that's how the Dreamer Next Door came about. I did a TEDx talk that sort of sparked the dialogue, and I said, I want to keep this going. I want to create this scholarship, and the nonprofit was the best means of doing so. As it relates to my personal brand, I am Isioma. Again, that's a platform where I house all things concerning me, and it allows me to pursue my passion and the things that are important to me, while still sort of lifting up who I am as a lawyer and things like that. So, you'll see my public speaking, any sort of business I'm offering or creating. I have some things in the works. You can all find that on my platform. And it's a way to just expand my brand, get people familiar with who I am and what I'm about, and just have great impact.
Yeah, and the website is actually very clean. It looks really good, and no, you're very welcome. And one of the things that I've also checked out, particularly with that scholarship, and then this year with everything that's going on, we're talking about, before we started, how we're trying to survive 2020 and all the things that are happening, in communities all over the country. And I don't know if this was a component that was added this year, but there was an additional eligibility requirement when it came to anybody who was affected by police brutality.
Yes.
So, and I thought that was really powerful to utilize that to really address that concern, because obviously we see that it's happening more often than maybe we're, all of us as a whole are aware. So was that something that was added this year, or was that something that you thought about before?
It was. So impact. I'm all about impact. You can give me all the accolades and degrees and things in the world, but if that presence doesn't change other people's lives and doesn't make the world better, to me, it's all for naught anyway. And so when I was, we're all going through 2020. The world is crazy. Things are coming to the surface. We're all feeling the impacts of the 2 global pandemics that we're going through. And I said, how can I do my part? No matter how big or small that is. And so this year we allocated a scholarship for a student of color directly impacted by police brutality. When I created the Dreamer Next Door, the core of it was immigration reform, but I understood that my prayer is that immigration isn't always an issue. And when it's no longer an issue, what are you going to use that platform for? How are you going to transform it? And for me, it's to engage and mobilize millennials to address pressing socio-political issues so that we can change this world. I am a firm believer that younger generations will transform this world. And so I wanted the Dreamer Next Door to be a vessel for that. And one of the things I said is, okay, this is another marginalized group. This is another group that needs support. When you have if you're a family, say for instance, you have a parent whose life was lost due to police brutality. When you're going to college, that's going to be a hurdle. That's going to be a hurdle. Oftentimes when you hear of these tragedies and these incidents, the first thing people are doing are creating scholarship funds for the children of these families, because we understand the realities of living in a 1-parent or a 1-income household. And so it is something that was new, that was created this year. And it was just me doing my part to expand the Dreamers Next Door's impact.
Absolutely, and I applaud you for that, and especially because the world I'm in financial aid, so I know all about those. We, especially with Illinois, we actually just came up with the RISE Act, so that actually addresses those DACA students who can't specifically get the state grant, and so it gives them an opportunity to actually receive that, especially since they can't get that federal aid. So
Illinois is on the ball with like sort of, and Chicago too, just on the ball with like including immigrants in things. I know when we had the stimulus that went out earlier this year, a lot of jurisdictions immigrants didn't qualify, and if I recall correctly, Illinois or Chicago, I don't know which one, sort of created a means for immigrants to get that stimulus and benefit from it. So Illinois is on the ball.
Yeah, the state tries. I can't speak on behalf of everything that happens here, but
right.
But it's good that that does get noticed. Those types of things get noticed, and then with me, working within higher ed, and in interacting with those students who can't get the aid that everybody is used to, or in some cases take for granted. It's nice to see those opportunities like the RISE Act, like the scholarship that you have, those different things that still make, when it comes to education, what it's supposed to be, or what America's supposed to represent when it comes
exactly.
to that. So again, kudos to you for your efforts when it comes to that.
Thank you.
Now let's talk about that TEDx talk. Let's talk about how that came into place. When you got the call, all the way up to after you were done and walked off stage, because I got a chance to watch it, and it was amazing for me.
Thank you.
It was powerful. It was full of emotion. It was full of information. I recommend anybody to watch that just to get abreast of all of that's going on, especially when it comes to your specific story. Yeah. So talk about how that opportunity came about.
So you can find that on YouTube if anyone wants to check it out. It's called The Dreamer Next Door. It's my TEDx talk. And so, as I mentioned, maybe I didn't mention this, but I didn't find out I was a dreamer until I got to college. And so I was 18 years old. And just to put that in perspective, I'm 30 now. And so most of my life, I didn't know I was a dreamer. And then I get to college and I'm hit with these sudden realities of what that means. And as I get older, I learn more and I see more, but no one outside of my immediate family knows that I'm a dreamer. No one knows. And so there's certain things that happen and pop up in my life as I'm growing up, and I'm friends, family, school, all things are happening, and I'm not disclosing to people what's going on. An example is, I had a friend who wanted to do a destination wedding. She's like, yeah, like we're going to do a destination wedding. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be there. And she's like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? I'm like, I can't go. And I'm not explaining this. And so I'm just carrying this burden and this weight all of my life. And I'm like, I got to get this out. I got to share my story. And I can't be the only person going through this. And so I had a few friends who had done TEDx talks, and I reached out to them because I felt like that was a good platform to own your narrative. I had been presented with other opportunities throughout the years to like sort of share my story or sort of come out. I don't know if that's a good way of saying it, but to disclose my story. And to me, I just didn't feel like I would be owning the narrative. I felt like I'd be used as particularly when the Muslim ban came about. I had some opportunities to disclose there, and I was like, I just don't want something where I announce that I'm a dreamer, I share I'm a dreamer, and then we're not talking about this and we're not effectuating change after the fact. And so I said, okay, let's do a TEDx talk. Reached out to a few friends, and they're like, yeah, this is the process we did. So you submit an application through the institution that's sponsoring it. And so TEDx talks are franchises of TED, and they're often through universities or other like sort of academic organizations. And they own sort of a license to use the TED name, and they host them in different cities and municipalities and, states throughout the world. And so I submitted my application, and immediately, well, not immediately, but they came back enthusiastically a few months later and said, hey, we really, really want you to do this. And it's so funny. The first thing they said to me is that although we really, really want you to do this, we want to make sure that you're okay doing this. Will it have any detrimental impacts on your life? If you share this, since this will be the first time you're disclosing it, will everything be okay? And they're like, we're going to reach out to the Milwaukee ACLU chapter and all of this stuff. And I'm like, no, this is what I feel called to do. I always consult my faith before I do anything. So this is what I feel called to do. And so from the time I received the acceptance to the time I actually performed my TEDx talk, it was about 9 months. And so you write this whole talk. Well, that was my process. And you want it to be about 16 to 20 minutes. 16 is the sweet spot. Actually, it can be less than 16, but 16 is what they consider the sweet spot. When you're doing a TEDx talk, the research shows that after 16 minutes, people's attention span drastically declines. So you want it to be around the 16-minute mark. And so I prepared for this for 9 months. We were meeting once a month for the course of 9 months. As we got closer to performance date, we met a little bit more frequently. And then in April of 2019, I delivered my talk, and it has honestly been the greatest blessing. It has provided me with such an expanded platform. I've turned my test into a testimony, and it's allowed me again to impact lives.
I like the fact that you basically frame it as you owning your own narrative, and that I think is empowering in itself just for yourself. And then once you actually get it out to the people, and like you said, you're not the only person that's in this position, but they find someone, especially if they look like you, I think that also helps. And that, gets them to either take some action or feel a little bit better about their situation. What was the reception like, once that came out, even right after you walked off stage, with the people that were present, and then also once it got posted on YouTube, what was that reception like?
So it was a sold out show. It was myself and I believe 7 other TEDx talk that day. So it was a full day symposium, and I was the last one to go. And it's so funny because everyone else is listening to everyone else's talk, and I'm like, I don't even remember you guys' talk. I couldn't watch it. It was freaking me out. I had too much anxiety, and I go off stage. Well, I go on stage, perform my TEDx talk, and immediately turn around and run. And I'm backstage, and the curators of the TEDx, they're like, Isioma, turn around. You have a standing ovation. You have a standing ovation. I'm like, no, get out my way. I'm trying to get off the stage. And so I had so much anxiety, but I got a standing ovation. And it was finally posted a few weeks later, and I had nothing but positive reviews, a ton of support, people trying to figure out how they can support me, what they can do. The dreamer next door telling me I think one of the best compliments I got is that you taught me something I didn't know. And I think that's so important when you're talking about socio-political issues, because one, I think we have a tendency to silo issues to certain demographics. This is a Black issue. This is an LGBTQ plus issue. This is a Latin American issue. This is a poor people's issue. And it's no, the way that the world works and the synergy of people requires everything to be everyone's issue. And so that was one thing that, was a great compliment, that you taught me something I didn't know, that, I never knew that. One of the responses I got, especially from my close friends, was like, why didn't you ever tell us? And blah, blah, blah. And people just don't understand the gravity of, something like that. But, some folks are like, okay, you should have told us a long time ago. But I got really, really positive reviews. And ever since, it's just been a ton of support, people wanting to learn more and people wanting to help more.
That's good. And when especially when you get people to want to learn more about the issue. And even if you don't believe that, all of these issues are all of our issues, you could have that friend who, has that situation, and you might not know, I think you said it in the talk, you might not know that you'd be saying things that, have an impact on how they feel when it comes to those certain things, because you don't know that it's affecting them. So exactly. I thought it was super informative, and we really got to see you within that. It wasn't just you lecturing, it was really engaging, just like how, you would expect a TEDx talk to be. So, like I said, I'll vouch for you when it comes to just, making sure that people listen to it, because it's really good. It's really good. So we'll make sure to have a link in.
Thank you. Yeah. And I share again, I'm not about all the accolades. I'm not about having the TEDx talk with 1.3 million views, but this is still an issue in society. We still have not resolved it. If anyone is familiar, the DACA decision came before the Supreme Court when this administration wanted to repeal it. And it's still very much a pertinent issue. And it's an issue that transcends races, transcends ethnic groups, transcends genders. And so I just want people to really be informed.
Absolutely. And I think you've done that, when it comes to that, and you're still doing that with your whole brand and everything.
Thank you.
So now, with all these things that you're doing, as obviously you're still, riding the wave of the TEDx talk. You are, you have your nonprofit, you have your brand, you have your work, and then you also have family, friends, you have all these things you have to manage. How do you take care of yourself so that you can maintain all of those things?
I often sit on panels and do podcasts like this, and this is actually a more frequent question than you'd imagine. Like, people are always asking about self-care, and I am not a liar. I would never want to sit and lie to people, and that is one of my, as much as I do well professionally and all of these things, that is one of my greatest weaknesses. I have not mastered self-care, and as a woman of color, I think it's truly like trauma, repressed trauma. And we're just so used to pouring into people that self-care is non-existent. So it's still something that I'm learning, and it's still something I'm figuring out. But one thing that I have learned is like, self-care doesn't have to be a 24-hour spa day. Self-care, it could be just going and getting yourself a good meal. It could be going and getting yourself a good drink. It could be going to the movies. It can be going to get your nail and your hair done. Yeah, it can be the spa day. But it doesn't have to be that. Self-care can be found in the little things. And so what I tell people, especially women of color who struggle with incorporating self-care, is that the things that you do, no matter how small, that are for yourself, make sure that when you do them uninterrupted. And so if I'm at the hair salon, I'm not responding to any text messages. I'm not picking up any phone calls. I'm not doing any of that. If I'm sitting and watching a movie, unless it's some sort of, fun, lighthearted text message, I'm not disrupting that. If I'm eating, eat your food without any interruptions. Don't be scrolling. Don't be doing any of that. And just take the little things you already do and make sure that you do it uninterrupted and completely introspective so you can focus on you. So I have to do better with not overwhelming myself and not stretching myself thin and learning to say no to things and not feeling guilty about it. But I do find joy in the little things that I get to do every once in a while for myself. The movies are one of my favorite things. I love going to the movies, film festivals, all of that. Netflix, love it all.
There you go. Yeah. So it's finding the time that works for you, because like you said, everybody doesn't need the whole 24 hours. I know if I tried to take 24 hours of doing something leisurely, I will go crazy because I need to work in about a couple hours, but
right.
Still, but like you said, acknowledging that, even if it is just that 10 minutes out of the day, we've had people that talk about meditating where they can just really shut out the world and just really, really stick with themselves and go through that process. And that's all they need to get through the rest of the, 23 hours or 50 minutes, of the rest of the day. Yeah. So, it's good to, I appreciate your honesty when it comes to working on that. And I don't think it's something that, anybody can master and then that's it, because things, new opportunities are coming, things are always changing. So we have to adapt to that. And in turn, we have to kind of adapt the ways that we try to take care of ourselves. So,
absolutely.
So I appreciate you, putting that into perspective. Now, when it came to everything that you've done, challenge-wise, whether that was, through school, through your career, how did you, what kind of challenges did you face? And then how did you overcome those, to the point where you have this establishment within your career, within your personal life?
Yeah. So that huge challenge, obviously, is I'm a dreamer. And so that had an impact not only on me academically, but professionally, because until the Obama administration, there was no means for dreamers to work in this country legally. And so, forgive me, I don't know what all the viewers and people out there believe in, but I'm a huge person of faith. I'm a firm believer that all things that are of the world were created by one being. And those things are forever in that being's control. And so I'm a huge person of faith. A lot of times when I found myself like sad or upset or hopeless, I turned to my faith, and I understood that everything works in accordance with my greater purpose and the greater plan for my life. And so that is how I got through a lot of scenarios and difficulties, centering myself, remembering who I am, and honestly remembering that you're a boss chick. Like, you're a badass. Excuse my French. You're a badass, and on everything that you've faced thus far, you've gotten through. And so that's my big thing now. Every time, even as an adult, or, you know, as I continue to grow and develop, if I'm stressed out or if I'm overcome with something or I just feel a bit overwhelmed, I'm like, okay, take a deep breath, get a level head, get some perspective. It is not at the end of the world. Things might seem a little hard or gloomy right now, but you've been through worse. And you'll get through it. And so it's just sort of recentering myself, you know, putting my faith in perspective and putting who I am in perspective.
There you go. And as long as you stay true to that, and like I said, you know, whether that's, you know, faith or, you know, some other, right, you know, some other thing that you turn to, you know, when it comes to trying to get through those stressful times, that you're founded in that, and that you're
exactly.
So that's good that you pointed that out. So lastly, I want to keep it a little bit lighthearted, you know, but I think everything that you've mentioned has been very informative. You know, I really do appreciate your story. Now, I don't know if any part of this was part of your inspiration of getting into law, but, you know, there's always those fictional characters that, you know, play attorneys on, you know, shows, movies, video games, all of that. So
right,
pick one that you feel like is the best attorney, whether that's because that they're really good at their job, or they're the most entertaining, whatever the case is. Who would you pick and why?
So that's such a hard question. That's probably the hardest question you've asked. Part of the reason that it's hard is I actually don't like a ton of legal, like, television shows and movies, because I often find as a lawyer, when you're a part of something, you tend to overanalyze it. And as a lawyer, I overanalyze like fictional lawyers, because I'm like, well, you can't really do that. That's not how law school is. Like, there's no way that be happening in the real world. So I tend not to like them anyway. But I will say, as a black woman, I have my three. They are Olivia Pope, Annalise Keating, and Tamika Robinson, who's actually the attorney on Power. She's the black woman attorney on Power. And the reason why they're my favorite, I think they're feisty, I think they're fiery, I think they're strong portrayals of black women. And what I found is that when you really think about it, there aren't that many people of color lawyers portrayed on television, like when you really, really think about it. And so when you find them, you hold on to them. And I'm appreciative of those positive motifs of black women on television. Another one, the mom on the Cosby Show, Felicia Rashad, she was an attorney too. So she's probably out of all four, she's probably my favorite, followed by Tamika Robinson. But I love any portrayal of strong black women. So those are my girls.
There you go. Yeah. Phyllis Rashad is the GOAT when it comes to that. You know, I tried to think of this because, one, I don't consume too much, and then I had to look up, okay, what were the actual fictional lawyers that have actually been out there? And right. So I did some research and I came up with this. I was like, oh, come on now, Uncle Phil. That I would say that's my number one.
When you were talking, I was like, Uncle Phil is a pretty good one too. But, you know, I got to stick with my ladies.
Absolutely. Got to represent. I appreciate that. So, Isioma, thank you. This has been great. I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed your story. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me and then share your story with the world. So before we do close out, I want to give you the opportunity to let everybody know where they can find you. If you have anything that you want to plug, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for this space. You know, it's been just as a privilege and an honor to me as I'm sure it's been to you. If you want to find me on social media, you can find me on Instagram at Isioma N, so ISIOMAN. You can find my organization, Dreamer Next Door, conventional spelling on Instagram as well. You can find me on Facebook, Isioma N. You can find me on Twitter, Isioma Nwabuzor, ISIOMA, last name Nwabuzor. You can find me on LinkedIn there as well. So I'm all, one thing about having a personal platform is you have to be on all the social media platforms. And finally, my website. That's where you can find all things concerning me. And that is I am Isioma. Again, that's ISIOMA.com. And you can find things about me, the dreamer next door. All of that is housed there.
Absolutely, yeah, and there's a lot of great information on that site, and wherever your post is. So thanks again, thanks everybody for listening, watching. This has been another great episode. If you had any questions, had comments, you want to hear from a particular professional or someone in a particular field, feel free to reach out to us. Again, that's contact@inquirehire.com, or you can reach out to us on social media or our website. So until next time, peace to you and enjoy the rest of your day.